From this, it is manifest that the stimulatory movements based upon sensory impressions, whether the latter are derived from external objects or from causes within the body, present themselves not only when persons are awake, but also then when this affection, which is called sleep, has come upon them, with even greater impressiveness. For by day, while the senses and the intellect are working together, they, that is, such movements, are extruded from consciousness or obscured, just as a smaller is beside a larger fire, or as small beside great pains or pleasures, though as soon as the latter have ceased, even those which are trifling emerge into notice. But by night, in sleep, owing to the inaction of the particular senses, and their powerlessness to realize themselves, which arises from the reflux of the hot from the exterior parts to the interior, they, the above movements, are borne into the headquarters of sense perception, and there display themselves as the disturbance of waking life subsides. We must suppose that, like the little eddies which are being ever formed in rivers, so the sensory movements are each a continuous process, often remaining like what they were when first started, but often too broken into other forms by collisions with obstacles. This last mentioned point, moreover, gives the reason why no dreams occur in sleep immediately after meals, or to sleepers who are extremely young, for example to infants. The internal movement in such cases is excessive, owing to the heat generated from the food. Hence, just as in a liquid, if one vehemently disturbs it, sometimes no reflected image appears, while at other times one appears, indeed, but utterly distorted, so as to seem quite unlike its original. While when once the motion has ceased, the reflected images are clear and plain. In the same manner, during sleep, the phantasms, or residuary movements, which are based upon the sensory impressions, become sometimes quite obliterated by the above described motion when too violent, while at other times the sights are indeed seen, but confused and weird, and the dreams which then appear are unhealthy, like those of persons who are tribilious, or feverish, or intoxicated with wine. For all such affections, being spirituous, cause much commotion and disturbance. In sanguineous animals, the proportion as the blood becomes calm, and as its purer are separated from its less pure elements, the fact that the movement, based on impressions derived from each of the organs of sense, is preserved in its integrity, renders the dream healthy, causes a clear image to present itself, and makes the dreamer think, owing to the effects borne in from the organ of sight, that he actually sees, and owing to those which come from the organ of hearing, that he really hears, and so on with those also which proceed from the other sensory organs. For it is owing to the fact that the movement which reaches the primary organ of sense comes from them, that one, even when awake, believes himself to see, or hear, or otherwise perceive, just as it is from a belief that the organ of sight is being stimulated, though in reality not so stimulated, that we sometimes erroneously declare ourselves to see, or that from the fact that touch announces two movements, we think that one object is two. For, as a rule, the governing sense affirms the report of each particular sense, unless another particular sense, more authoritative, makes a contradictory report. In every case, an appearance presents itself, but what appears does not in every case seem real, unless when the deciding faculty is inhibited, or does not move with its proper motion. Moreover, as we said that different men are subject to illusions, each according to the different emotions present in him, so it is that the sleeper, owing to sleep, and to the movements then going on in his sensory organs, as well as to the other facts of the sensory process, is liable to illusion, so that the dream presentation, though but little like it, appears as some actual given thing. For when one is asleep, in proportion as most of the blood sinks inwards to its fountain, the heart, the internal sensory movements, some potential, others actual, accompany it inwards. They are so related in general that if anything move the blood, some one sensory movement will emerge from it, while if this perishes, another will take its place, while to one another also they are related in the same way as the artificial frogs in water, which severally rise in fixed succession to the surface in the order in which the salt, which keeps them down, becomes dissolved. The residuary movements are like these. They are within the soul potentially, but actualize themselves only when the impediment to their doing so has been relaxed. And according as they are thus set free, they begin to move in the blood which remains in the sensory organs, and which is now but scanty, while they possess verisimilitude after the manner of cloud shapes, which in their rapid metamorphoses one compares now to human beings and a moment afterwards to centaurs. Each of them is, however, as has been said, the remnant of a sensory impression taken when sense was actualizing itself. And when this, the true impression, has departed, its remnant is still immanent. And it is correct to say of it that though not actually choriskos, it is like choriskos. For when the person was actually perceiving, his controlling and judging sensory faculty did not call it choriskos, but, prompting by this impression, called the genuine person yonder choriskos. Accordingly, this sensory impulse, which, when actually perceiving it, the controlling faculty, describes, unless completely inhibited by the blood, it now in dreams, when quasi-perceiving, receives from the movements persisting in the sense organs, and mistakes it, an impulse that is merely like the true objective impression, for the true impression itself, while the effect of sleep is so great that it causes this mistake to pass unnoticed. Accordingly, just as if a finger be inserted beneath the eyeball without being observed, one object will not only present two visual images, but will create an opinion of its being two objects, while if it, the finger, be observed, the presentation will be the same, but the same opinion will not be formed of it. Exactly so it is in states of sleep. If the sleeper perceives that he is asleep, and is conscious of the sleeping state during which the perception comes before his mind, it presents itself still. But something within him speaks to this effect. The image of choriskos presents itself, but the real choriskos is not present. For often, when one is asleep, there is something in consciousness which declares that what then presents itself is but a dream. If, however, he is not aware of being asleep, there is nothing which will contradict the testimony of the bare presentation. That what we here urge is true, that there are such presentative movements in the sensory organs, anyone may convince himself if he attends to and tries to remember the affections we experience when sinking into slumber or when being awakened. He will sometimes, in the moment of awakening, surprise the images which present themselves to him in sleep, and find that they are really but movements lurking in the organs of sense. And indeed, some very young persons, if it is dark, though looking with wide open eyes, see multitudes of phantom figures moving before them, so that they often cover up their heads in terror. From all this, then, the conclusion to be drawn is that the dream is a sort of presentation, and more particularly, one which occurs in sleep, since the phantoms just mentioned are not dreams, nor is any other a dream which presents itself when the sense perceptions are in a state of freedom. Nor is every presentation which occurs in sleep necessarily a dream. For in the first place, some persons when asleep actually, in a certain way, perceive sounds, light, savor, and contact, feebly, however, and, as it were, remotely. For there have been cases in which persons while asleep, but with the eyes partly open, saw faintly in their sleep, as they supposed, the light of a lamp, and afterwards, on being awakened, straightway recognized it as the actual light of a real lamp. While in other cases, persons who faintly heard the crowing of cocks or the barking of dogs identified these clearly with the real sounds as soon as they awoke. Some persons, too, return answers to questions put to them in sleep. For it is quite possible that, of waking or sleeping, while the one is present in the ordinary sense, the other also should be present in a certain way. But none of these occurrences should be called a dream, nor should the true thoughts, as distinct from the mere presentations which occur in sleep, be called dreams. The dream proper is a presentation based on the movement of sense impressions, when such presentation occurs during sleep, taking sleep in the strict sense of the term. There are cases of persons who in their whole lives have never had a dream, while others dream when considerably advanced in years, having never dreamed before. The cause of their not having dreams appears somewhat like that which operates in the case of infants, and that which operates immediately after meals. It is intelligible enough that no dream presentation should occur to persons whose natural constitution is such that in them copious evaporation is borne upwards, which, when borne back downwards, causes a large quantity of motion. But it is not surprising that as age advances, a dream should at length appear to them. Indeed, it is inevitable that as a change is wrought in them in proportion to age or emotional experience, this reversal from non-dreaming to dreaming should occur also.